Hey, this is Bruce Trujillo from Indy 1023, and for Women's History Month this year, we reached out to some women in the Colorado music industry across different fields, including Kim Baxter, sound at High Dive, Christine Sanley, AAA radio promoter with Cosign, also Christian He, senior marketing manager with Z2 Entertainment up in Boulder, and Nikki Ray, photographer and general manager of Do 303. Now, you can read about all of these amazing women at our website, indy1023.org, but they're also my guests today. Hello, everybody.
Hello.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
It's great to see your faces. Can't wait to see them in real life. Let's do some better introductions really quick, though. That was kind of the quick and dirty of it. Tell me more about what you do in the Colorado music scene and how long you've been here. Let's start with Kim Baxter.
Hey, so I have been doing sound pretty much in Denver for the last 6 years. I want to say I'm really bad at keeping track of the time on that. And I also play drums, and I've been doing that for maybe 10 years or so.
So we'll see you in different ways across our scene. Yeah.
Some different roles.
Mm-hmm. Different things.
Christine, a couple of different hats. Yeah.
I'm Christine. I'm the director of AAA radio promo at a company called Cosign. Our main headquarters is in Brooklyn. So I get to venture back to my old stomping grounds pretty frequently when traveling is a thing. I've been in Denver for about 2.5 years now, and I get to work remotely, so I can kind of do whatever I need to do as long as I have internet access. But the mountains have always called me. This is such a great radio market, so it just felt like a good place for me to be.
Definitely. And Christian He up in Boulder.
Yeah, I'm Christian. I am the senior marketing manager at Z2 Entertainment in Boulder, and we own and operate the Boulder Theater, the Fox Theater, and now the Aggie Theater in Fort Collins as well. I've been in Boulder for about the past 12 years and doing marketing in the music industry for about 7 or 8 years, and then with Z2 for coming on 2 years in May.
Oh my gosh, already. All right, and Nikki, we see Nikki around the community all the time as a photographer, but also in Do 303. Nikki, tell us more about you.
Well, you don't see me. I'm usually hiding on the other side. I'm Nikki. I'm a photographer focusing on music and events in Denver, which are coming back, and it's incredibly exciting to be part of. And I run Do 303, which helps connect people with great events and music. And this year we had the chance to really connect people with causes and businesses in a different way since our whole world changed. So excited to get back to it.
We all are, and I'm super, like I said, I'm excited to see each of you in person as things start opening up, as live music comes back out, because I feel like that's where I see the four of you the most is, shows. But tell me, how did each of you get started in your role? Nikki, since we just spoke with you, tell me a little bit more about getting started with photography and Do 303.
So the photography side, I've just always loved music. I had taken photos most of my life, and then I wandered into UMS one day, maybe 8 or 10 years ago, and just kind of fell in love with that thing that I feel is unique to Denver about community, just connecting and supporting each other. And I'd listen to one band on one stage, and then I'd go to another show and I'd be like, wait a minute, that was the drummer from the band I just saw. Like everybody was just collaborating in this really cool way. And I thought, yeah, that's something I'd like to be part of. So I volunteered the next year. Somebody who is now a friend started as a mentor, took a chance on me. I had no idea what I was doing. I had no idea how to shoot music. I have no idea why shooting things that move fast in the dark seemed like a really great career path, but here I am. And luckily, I think this year, depending on how it goes, will be my 8th UMS. So I'm lucky to still be part of that organization and still part of that side of the scene. And then in December of 2019, I had this great opportunity to come on with Do 303, which let me kind of connect that love of music and the local scene in a new and interesting way, and just kind of give visibility, have a larger platform to do that, support businesses, and kind of just get to be involved in cool stuff happening in Denver that folks should know about.
And Christian, how about you? How did you get started in marketing for venues and stuff like that?
So originally I went to CU for advertising, and embarrassingly, I wasn't super huge in the local music scene while I was in college. I went to a few shows here and there, but it was my first senior year that one of my professors had turned down a PR position at my old company, United Interests, and said they were looking for someone if I was interested and wanted to email them. I wasn't ready for a full-time position then, but ended up taking an internship. Annie Ricks was my supervisor there, and she's amazing. And on one of my first days, she was like, it would be so cool if you ended up in the music industry instead of advertising. I'm like, I'll email you in like 30 years when that happens. I was really set on advertising. But then I quickly fell in love, ended up becoming the PR and marketing person at United Interests, working with Elephant Revival and the Little Smokies and making movies. And Caroline Smith, who's now Your Smith, she's awesome. And then through years of working with them, I was always in touch with Z2 from the artist side, marketing shows. And when it came time to leave UI, it was just really awesome that I got to end up working for Z2, which, you know, at the time, Darlene was their marketing person, and she was like my favorite marketing person to work with. So it was really cool to take her place a couple people after her.
Definitely. I worked with Darlene D'Agostino as well, and it was like bittersweet when she left, but I'm very glad we get to work with you now. Kim, how did you get into sound? I guess let's talk about that first.
I had already been playing drums around for, I don't know, a few years, I think at whatever point. And I was already, I don't know how I had like become, I knew a couple people who were doing sound. They had done sound for me, you know, at a couple of venues and stuff. And I liked them and I respected how they did their job. So I think that's why I started thinking about doing it. And so I was, you know, kind of talking to one of my friends, you know, thinking I'd be like, hey, do you want to teach me how to do this? And then somebody else who is now a close friend of mine, actually one day it was just like, I think you know, maybe be good at this and I can show you how to do it. So it just, yeah, like the timing worked out really great. I think I trained for, I mean, it took me a while. It was maybe 9 months to a year of just going and hanging around with these people and helping them and learning how to wrap cables and do all that stuff.
That's an art in and of itself.
Yeah, and then eventually I was allowed to like take a solo shift and kind of just started like taking as much work as I could from there.
Well, and I can say also, bands that get to play at the High Dive, they're super excited when Kim is the back of house sound person. I'm like, yes, Kim's.
I like that. I like seeing that. I like walking in and seeing a band, and then like we're happy to see each other.
Yeah, and I'm always excited when I see you back there too. It's like, yes, sound's gonna be great tonight.
Thanks, Bruce. But then I'm nervous when you're at the show. I'm like, oh, I guess I better sound good.
And Christine, how did you get involved in radio promotion? You've been at a couple different companies at this point.
Yeah, so I initially got started in college radio because I was like, this would be a cool way to meet other people that are into good music. So I started as a DJ and then moved on to music director, where I was, you know, interacting with all of the different labels and promo folks, and was like, this would be a fun thing to do after graduation. So talked myself into a job after that and have been doing the radio promo thing ever since, and started with the college radio side, but then have progressed to the AAA radio format, which is my home base now. And yeah, I've been doing that for about 15 years now. Geez Louise, time flies.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, let's talk about representation, and anybody can jump in here. Of course, the number of femme to male musicians in the spotlight is heavily unbalanced, but behind the scenes within the industry, it's even more unbalanced. So talk about how many other women you work within your company or organization. Are you flying solo? Are you surrounded by some amazing women? Talk a little bit more about how you see your company and your organization, and anybody can jump in here.
I can start. I'm really fortunate right now to be at a company that's led by a super strong and intelligent woman. I've known her forever, and I'm so fortunate to be able to work with her. And there's another woman, Yolanda, behind the scenes as well, who I get to work with closely. And then we have some good, solid, like allied dudes on the team as well. So I feel very fortunate right now. That wasn't always the case. You know, when I first started out, I worked at a company with all men. Our roster was primarily men. And that never sat with me quite right. So I've kind of had to like chip away and work to try to like get to a place where I could be working with more women and for more women musicians.
Anybody else?
I'll go next. I'm also very fortunate right now to be working at Z2, who's led by Cheryl Ligori. And she has been doing an amazing job. And I'm so grateful for her for helping Z2 get through this pandemic. We really wouldn't be here without her still, with you know, so many venues sadly going under. And until recently, we had our amazing woman production manager, Karen, and she is recently moving, or has recently moved on to be doing real estate, but she's been with the company for over 20 years. We have a woman accountant, and then previously at my old job at United Interest, I was lucky to be surrounded by other amazing women and also be in a place where I could be in charge of hiring interns to bring more women into the company, which in turn they became staff members as well. So one of my little proud moments.
Absolutely. Kim or Nikki?
I guess I could maybe, I don't know, I don't have a whole lot to say about it really. There's definitely, I think in sound, we're a little few and far between. Not that I've always felt very supported though by, you know, by any colleague, male or female, as I've kind of, you know, as I've been working in this industry. So I can't say that I haven't had a really wonderful experience, even though, yeah, you know, I definitely don't see a ton of women doing what I'm doing, but we always, you know, I think I always love when I see another, you know, see another woman at the show. We're working together on a show, whatever it is, and it's I think you know, we're seeing it more though with like musicians, either that I'm playing with or doing sound for. I don't know that the women, you know, are as few and far between as we used to be, maybe on that side of things. Yeah, and it's not to say everything's, you know, perfect and equal and all of this other stuff, but I mean, I do feel encouraged. I will be happy though. And I mean, I think a lot of it too is I'm a little bit insulated as far as my experience doing sound. I certainly haven't done much sound outside of the city or the state. So I know that there are more women out there doing this than I know of, you know, and that I see, which is really cool and also very encouraging. So, you know, like I said, my hope is you know, there's more of us out there that even than I know about currently. And it's just, it'd be cool if it was more. And I'm not sure why it's not more, honestly. I don't know. Probably we could have a whole other discussion about that.
We probably totally could. Nikki, what about you?
You know, I came from 15 years in the sales world and in very male-led environments and in places that if you were going to be successful, you were successful by doing it the way the boys did it. And that was kind of just something you always fell into and where I came from. And it's been cool at Do 303 while our partners are male. They kind of give me free reign to do what I want. And it was a solo show for a while, but we've been able to hire a content manager who's amazing and happens to be trans. So that's kind of fun to have a different lens and an opportunity to practice what we preach. You know, we've been trying to really push on diversity and awareness and that sort of stuff. And we're trying to build that internally as well. The photography pit is a mixed bag. There are some really, really wonderful men that we shoot with and that we get to see and treat us well. But by and large, they're still the ones getting hired by particularly the promoters and that sort of thing. And I don't I don't think there's maliciousness behind it. I think it's a history and relationship, and just that there hasn't always been the opportunity. And it's encouraging that I have seen those promoters reach out a little bit more intentionally. And if there is an opportunity, try to reach out to a woman or a person of color, or diversify kind of what the faces in that pit look like. It was really intimidating the first time I shot a big show, and walking into a room, not even a room, I don't know, 2 foot by 6 foot space, which sounds terrifying at the end of a year of COVID. But walking into that space and literally having to shove elbows past these dudes who've been doing it forever, who are now some of my dearest friends. And it's fun that now I see more women pushing their way in there as well. And I see more than just a sea of white faces up front. So that all is very encouraging to me. And hopefully we're going in the right direction.
Yeah, and that was actually a part of the web article that you can find at indie1023.org. But how can the music industry, and each of you can probably speak to your roles, of course, and what you're involved in, but how can they be more supportive and representative when we have women beginning their careers or trying to move up in their careers? How do you see your part of the industry being more supportive of that? And again, anybody can jump in here.
That's a hard question, because like Nikki was saying, it's not always malicious. It's just sort of tradition, I guess. So I think there being like another woman in an administrative team that like helps other women get their foot in the door, I really think that might be the only way to really make a significant change, because there are already so many talented and hardworking females out there, and femme identifying people out there that are amazing at what they do, but are just not getting picked up for one reason or the other. So I think really having people to stand up for them is going to be important. And I think that's important for us as women in the music industry to keep gunning for other women.
Yeah, it's kind of all about like intentionality, right? And I remember seeing an article that posted on Billboard, I think it was like a month ago, about AAA radio and like how it started and where we're at now. And every single programmer that was interviewed for this article was a white man. And so like, if you're on that side and you're trying to be an ally, like maybe ask who else is being interviewed for this article. Like maybe you should try so-and-so. Maybe we should get some other voices and faces in the mix here, because we do get so used to like seeing the same people, and it's just so easy to like ask so-and-so to speak on this panel or to be interviewed to talk about the radio format we're working in. And until we start opening the door for more women, for more BIPOC folks, like it's just going to remain shut. So it's just about, I think, being more conscious about how and where we're participating and creating space for others.
Sorry, no, I think that's spot on. I think we're struggling a little bit at Do 303. We've made it an internal project that we will have an external facing, but I think you kind of got to work on the inside before you work on the outside, around allyship, not specifically about women, but just all across the board, and being more inclusive, and the line between, do we call out that this is woman owned or Black owned, and is that helpful or is that hurtful? And at some point we want it to just be normal and we're listing the best business because it's the best business, but there's this interim phase of, we have to stretch a little further to make those changes happen. But there are also people who are white men who are great, who have worked really hard and are really good at what they do and have built those relationships. And how do you make space without taking away from everybody? I think we need a bigger table is what we need, and people inviting folks that don't look like themselves. Particularly in my photography world, it's gig economy. We're all fighting for not enough jobs that aren't paying well enough. So it gets to be hard to say, gosh, why would I recommend so-and-so? Because I also have bills to pay, and I've also worked at my business in this relationship. And so I think we run across that fear of like, I don't want to lose the job because I'm recommending so-and-so. And I think for management, maybe recognizing, hey, somebody extended a hand to try to bring somebody else in. Let's also reward that behavior. So I think trying to find that balance, we're in this weird in-between stage of wanting to do better and not necessarily quite knowing how.
Yeah, and Kim, actually, in your portion of the web article, you had said like things do need to change from being like, yeah, we are women, you know, soundboard engineers, we're women, whatever, just to like, we're soundboard engineers. Like taking that qualifier out is definitely the goal. And so, Kim, I'm going to ask you first, what unique advice would you give women coming into the industry and particularly into your role?
Boy, that's a good question. And it's kind of a hard question for some reason. I mean, I guess really, and I know that this gets said a lot these days, but really just don't be hesitant to take up your space. And again, I know that it gets thrown out a lot, but you know, if you've got questions, ask questions. If you want something, you know, definitely go try to get it. You know, because a lot of what I do, I mean, it's just been a ton of learning for me. And so I've always fortunately been made to feel really comfortable to, you know, constantly be going to people. I think I mentioned this too in the other questions, just constantly going to people with questions and, you know, seeking out information and things. So even stuff like that, it's like, yeah, don't be afraid to do that. Don't be afraid to be confident, I guess. You know, imposter syndrome is real. So definitely know that that's all it is, you know, it's something that I don't know. The feeling is real, but honestly, there's no need for it. But like, I feel like everybody goes through it, unfortunately. So that would be another thing I'd say is get ready for that. Get ready for a case of that, but you know, and get over it and just know that you're real, you know, you can do it. You're doing it.
You're doing it. Anybody else?
You're doing
Any other
it.
unique advice you would give to women coming into your field?
I think for me, be very specific about what you want when you're reaching out. I love that I get these emails and messages and DMs from female photographers, particularly in Denver, who some just want to do it because it's cool and they want to get into a show. And those are not people I'm generally going to spend a ton of time with. But they give a very broad, like, I want to shoot music. How do I do that? Like, I think really think about what it is you're trying to do and what it is I can help you with or that you think I can help you with. Exactly what Kim said, like figuring out what you want and not being afraid to ask for it. But I feel like when you give that broad thing, you're like, it's cool, you shoot with all those bands. Can you introduce me to them so I can shoot for them too? And it's like, okay, that's maybe not the best way to go about getting a job either. You know, I'm not going to introduce you to my client list quite that way. And then myself being aware of not everybody is used to we're not used to asking for those things. So I think being a little kinder and coaching folks and being like, hey, thanks for the compliment. Like, how can I help you? What are you looking to do? What is your experience? You know, are you looking to shoot a show? Are you just looking to talk shop? Do you want to grab a coffee? And trying to build some time into what always feels like a packed schedule to accommodate that.
Definitely. Christine, what about you for radio?
I mean, I guess I would say just always be assertive. Make sure you properly communicate kind of what your goals are and what your core values are in what you're trying to do. Because I think for so many of us working in the music space, it's all passion work. We're all doing this not to like get rich or whatever. Like we love what we do. We're passionate about what we do, and we're here to, you know, create space for others. So I think making sure that whatever company or organization you're involved with is kind of in line with where your values are, it's going to make it a much happier existence for everybody. And kind of on that note, like, don't be afraid to speak up if it becomes a place that's not that for you. Don't be afraid to be the squeaky wheel. I feel like so often women get silenced for, you know, trying to speak up too much, and that's very unfortunate. And I think, yeah, the more we use our voices, the more we assert like what we need and want in our workplace, the better it's going to be for everybody. So kind of my
Don't be afraid. And Christian, anything for anybody going into like venue work or marketing or anything like that?
For marketing specifically, I think you talked a lot on this, Bruce, on Indy's panel for Women's History Month, but say no. That's definitely something I struggle with, because like on the promoter side and artist side, you know, there's always going to be more tickets to sell. When a show sells out, you sell to more tickets to another show. Like it's just a constant barrage of work. So knowing what your boundaries are and what your limits are, knowing what you can do, so you can say, hey, this is all of the stuff that I can do right now. Maybe we can delegate this to someone else, or I'm just not going to be able to take this on right now. I think is really important, and it's something that I struggle with, and I'm working on. But that was a really important message for me, Bruce. So I'm so glad that you mentioned that. Thank you.
I'm also still working on that. And I think that comes with, you know, somebody, I think Jesse Witten had mentioned within that panel also, you know, you kind of want to be the best at what you do, and you want to say yes to everything, and you want to be the person that's needed the most. And I feel like that's a challenge that women find, especially because you're like, I am taking up this space and I am good at what I do. Look at what all the things that I'm doing. What are some other unique challenges that you've seen or experienced that might be surprising to folks? Because, you know, we can all be like, oh, well, I was, you know, treated poorly as a woman, but there are other hidden challenges that each of us have faced in our field. So talk a little bit more about that.
One thing that I constantly run into is just the infantilization. I work with a lot of older men in my sphere, and I so often get asked like, how old are you? Or like, you're too young to remember this. And just an assumption that I'm not as qualified, I don't know as much. And they don't know how old I am. I'm like, Bob, I've been calling you for 12 years. Like, do you still think I'm really like in my 20s? That's not a thing. So that's something that I find really difficult, and just like trying to find proper ways to address that, as opposed to just like getting on the defensive or just getting very angry, which does happen sometimes too, because you get it, you get stuff like that so often. It's difficult to deal with all of the time, but that's something that I found very troubling in my space, I guess.
For sure. Nikki, what about you? What are some unique challenges that you've had in the past or that you see continuing to happen?
I think, I don't know if it's necessarily unique to music, but definitely to art. And to the media side, I'm learning at Zoo 303 is the amount of work, unpaid work that folks kind of expect just because it's cool, just because what you're doing is so great. And like, I love these bands and I love the local businesses. And if it was just up to me and we didn't have bills to pay and we didn't have to keep the lights on and employees and stuff, sure, I would love to do that. Somebody wants to endow us, great, let's do that. But we're also a business. So finding the line between like, okay, you know, I charge certain bands this much because I know they can budget for that, because then it lets me pay, you know, charge this band this much, which is really the limit of their budget. And trying to not devalue the community, because what we do is cool and so many people are willing to do it for free. So instead of paying to have somebody who does it well, whether that's photography or sound or marketing plans, you can have somebody who will do it for free, not quite as well. And sometimes that's good enough for folks. So I think that's been kind of a surprising thing of how hard I would have to fight to say like, charge something, because people don't value free. And then you undervalue our entire industry by what we're doing. And then throw in gender, and then throw in, you know, any sort of color or gender or whatever other status that we're trying to get in front of folks. It's a bit of a mess.
Definitely. Christian, what about you?
I can't think of any that I would anything right now that I would consider challenges, but something hilarious that I continue to run into is that people get my name wrong in an email, when my name is in my email, when my signature has my name spelled correctly. And usually it's Christine, Christina, never Christopher or someone else. So I'm just so intrigued, and I'm just really wondering why people lean towards that. Like, how, if people know I'm female identifying, now I have my pronouns in my signature. So that's always just been something that I've been wondering about. When people call me the wrong name, that's a femme name. What are their intentions behind that, if there are any, if they're subconscious? And then I also thought at first, like before I had a photo attached to my email, like maybe I was getting so many great answers because people thought I was a man. So that's just something that I'm constantly worrying about, but I'm thinking about, but I'm not really sure what the reasoning is behind that. So
That's a really interesting point. I mean, because I have like a traditional male name that I use for work, and that's my nickname. I go by it all the time. And yeah, like before people know that I am femme identifying, I get answers much quicker. Things are a little bit easier. And so does anybody else have any relation to that? I mean, like Nikki could be kind of close to Nick. Christine could be like kind of close to Christian. I'm surprised that they just assume that you're also a woman, Christian. So wondering, has anybody else seen that with just like names and without putting pronouns out there?
Well, I thought Christian was a guy when I started at 2303, because the person before me said you were a guy, and I didn't have a reason to question it, and they'd never met you either. So I thought that was pretty funny. And so did Danny when Danny came in. I was like, no, Christian identifies as a woman. So that's just kind of funny on that. No, I don't get the benefit of the Nick, but wasn't there just like, I don't know if it's urban legend or if it is actually like an experiment somebody did of swapping names in the email that they were sending to see what kind of responses they were getting. Do you know what I'm talking about, Bruce? You're shaking your head.
I've seen those articles.
The Twitter thread, yeah. And yeah, it's really interesting. And I had been music director at a past radio station, and my predecessor was a man. And so it was just like a music at the radio station email, and they still thought that it was him. And so I'd get these responses back, but when I sent that with my name, it would be, a little bit more of a delay, or I wouldn't hear back at all. So it is really interesting to have that as a challenge, a name kind of thing. Before we get on to our next question, Kim, do you have any like surprising challenges that you found as you were getting into sound?
Sorry, cut out a little bit. Bruce, what did you say?
Yeah. Before we get to our next question, Kim, have you found that there are any unique challenges that you've come across in sound?
I think it kind of relates back to what Nikki was saying, and it's also, I don't think, something that's unique to sound, or it's maybe just unique to contractors, and it's really just knowing what my worth is. I mean, even just naming a price for a job that I'm doing as a drummer or as a sound engineer as well. And so that's something I'm still trying to work out. And it's, Nikki, I think you were saying this too. It's like, I want to weigh, well, what can this band afford? What can I do for them to help them out? But also, yeah, like know what my value is for this like service that I'm providing. So again, I don't think it's a problem that nobody else has. It's just definitely something that I'm always thinking about and trying to figure out a little bit better.
Definitely. So everybody, of course, has their own unique challenges, but let's talk a little bit more about why you still do your job. And we've mentioned that this is like a passion thing. We all love what we do, working in music. But tell me a little bit more about what has been bringing you joy in your role. And Christine, we'll start with you.
I mean, I get to work with so many incredible artists and help get their music played on radio stations across the country, which is why I do what I do, and what keeps me going for sure. And especially being able to work with some really dope women like St. Vincent and Valerie June and Flock of Dimes, just a bunch of folks I admire the hell out of. Like, that's what gets me out of bed every day. And two, like from my promoter standpoint, I feel like I can also be encouraging stations across the country to be doing better. I often kind of take it beyond just the promo side of things and try to ask folks to take a look at their playlist and their gender parity and how far off they are from that. And making it just more equitable and diverse in general. And so those are some of the harder conversations to have, but ones that I really enjoy having, and just hope that plants a seed so that they'll take that into their meetings and consider that a little bit more as they're, creating their ads every week to try to diversify it, because there's still a very big issue of AAA radio with it leading very heavily white male. And while baby steps are being taken in a lot of places, some people just have no desire to make any kind of change at all, which is frustrating, but I find that work like challenging and exciting.
Definitely. Kim, what about you? What brings you joy within your role?
I really like working with, again, it's just fun to work with cool bands. It's fun to learn how to communicate with bands in that situation. Bruce, you mentioned earlier, like when people come to High Dive or whatever venue I'm at, and they're happy to see me because we have a trust, and whatever it is, that brings me a lot of joy. And since COVID and everything, since lockdown, since we haven't really been able to do a ton of live shows, I've been doing sound for a handful of live streams. And so that's been learning a little bit about broadcast sound, which I had never had to think about before. And it's another thing I really enjoy about doing sound is there's constantly a ton of new stuff that I can go explore, and I can be learning if I want to.
Definitely. As a sound engineer, do you find yourself like being a total nerd about like different software or like boards or anything like that? Is there anything that you're like, I really want to work on this specific board someday, maybe?
Well, we all have our dream consoles, Bruce, but I try to be. I have a lot of friends who definitely are, and they're doing some next level stuff. So I like to talk to them and always learn a lot from them. So maybe I'm a bit of like a, I don't know, kind of amateur geek about it or something. Because it is fun to talk about soundboards sometimes. Not gonna lie.
I get it. I totally get that. Nikki, what brings you joy within your roles?
I'm actually the silver lining in the COVID dumpster fire has been, I think I was in danger of forgetting how cool what we do is and what a privilege, and to get to be at shows. I was going to 5 or 7 shows a week, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, like Red Rock started to be a struggle. Like you're walking up there, and I would always have that moment where I would turn around and I'd be like, oh my God, okay, this is church. But like, Jesus, I'm going to have to go 45 minutes early. I'm not going to be able to park. The guy's not going to let me in to park in the press lot, and we're going to have to play this game, and we're going to do this thing. And it just kind of got a little old and tired. So I have this new excitement again, which I'm really thrilled about, to kind of get a chance to come at it with fresh eyes, and I guess just realize what a privilege it is to do what we do. For the photography side, I love getting to tell stories, and I think that's what I try to take into a show, rather than just a cool shot of somebody jumping off a drum set or whatever it is that's going to happen at that night, whatever they're going to throw across the room at the High Dive, but watching for those interactions that happen between people, sneaking back to take pictures of Kim. And she
I was
like
just going to be like sneaking up on me in the sound.
Always sneak up on you, but I've gotten some good ones, so I'm going to keep doing it.
All right, maybe you have.
And then on the Do 303 side, it's been a real joy to get to connect to community, to tell people things that are going on that they didn't know about, the cool restaurants that are going on, to get to help lift up some new businesses that had the balls to come out in the middle of a pandemic and start something new and take chances. And that's been really fun, and that's giving me a lot of joy and a lot of inspiration.
And Nikki, I really relate to the like, oh, I was going to 5 to 7 shows a week before the pandemic hit. And I feel like that's kind of typical of all of us here. What did you find yourself doing those first couple of weeks last year where we're like, I don't have to go to 5 to 7 shows. Like, I don't have to go to Red Rocks, because I feel like I had that as well. Like, I gotta go to Red Rocks again. Like, I've gone to Red Rocks 9 weeks in a row. Like, so tell me about like those first couple of weeks where you were like intentionally having to take rest because you couldn't go out there.
Well, I think it was like everyone else. We kind of thought it would be a 2-week vacation, and wouldn't that be nice? And we would all just be back at it, and we'd be grumping about the same things. And that kind of ended up true of my photography life, but Do 303 had to do a complete 180. I mean, our job was to tell people what to go out and do, and all of a sudden that was just not a thing. And the when that would open again changed daily, weekly, monthly. It still is. So the content and the way we had to deliver stuff, that workload became massive. So they kind of ended up balancing each other out. I didn't really get to think about not going to shows. I did catch up on some editing, which was nice. I'm already back behind on editing. That is the life of a photographer. But yeah, I'm definitely excited seeing the lineups come out and already starting to book out some shows to shoot and get involved with. And that part's been really fun.
Super exciting. And Christian,
but
what's
maybe
been
not 5 to 7. Maybe
Hmm?
not 5 to 7. I think maybe that's one thing we all take out of pandemic is like, you can't be everything to everybody, and maybe slowing down was a good thing. And we don't want to be at 0 shows a week, but maybe 3 or 4 is a good number.
Not every night if we don't have
Not
to.
every
But these
night.
lineups, man, I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
I know.
Christian, what's been bringing you joy in your role?
Oh, there's so much. They're definitely the bands, working with the bands themselves, especially local bands. That's, I think, one of my favorite things is just being able to see a band come back year after year and sell more tickets year after year, or, you know, sometimes they outgrow us. And that's just really, really cool, from local bands. And then when I get to work with bigger bands, I'm not even working with them, I'm working with their team, but I'm like, oh my God, I'm on the same email thread as like Khruangbin's manager.
Yeah, I get that.
So that's really cool. And then another big part of it is just being able to provide live music for people. Even before the pandemic, you know, sometimes you could be providing someone's like best night of their entire life, or, you know, someone got engaged at a show there, and that's just really heartwarming to me. And I think even more so, now that live music's starting to come back, it's really cool to see people just enjoying themselves and filled with so much love, because of how much live music was missing in their life for the past several months. So that makes me really happy. I've gone to a handful of shows, reduced capacity shows at the Boulder Theater that we've been having. And even those people have to be 6 feet apart, I think we're like 6 to 10 feet apart at the Boulder Theater, and they're in their pods of 4 or 8. It's cool to see people getting down. That's something that I didn't expect. I was like, the energy is going to be so weird. Are people going to be sitting? Are people like just going to be eating tacos and like awkwardly watching? Are the bands going to like it? But it's really awesome. And another thing that I do want to say to fans of live music out there, which I'm sure is all of you, just be responsible right now. This is really, really hard for the Boulder Theater to put on shows like this, and a lot of the other venues that are currently doing this. If a show gets canceled because, you know, our COVID numbers start to go up, that means like all of my work is trashed. The band's work is trashed, and the money that they put in to market their shows and sell tickets, now they have to do that over, you know, maybe 4 more times. So just be responsible and respectful of the people that you love in the community, and as well as the artists.
Thank you. Yeah, we want to make sure that this is the time where we do get to finally get back to shows and we don't have to go back into lockdown. Well, we are running out of time, but before we wrap up, I want to see, is there anything that anybody is super excited about moving into this, like into summer, or with your job in particular? Anything that you're looking forward to? Nikki, we'll start with you.
I think I'm just really looking forward to complaining about going to Red Rocks 5 to 7 times a week. I've got to say, I'm looking at that lineup and kind of chomping at the bit, and already have 2 shows that aren't announced yet, so I can't say, but that I'm really excited to be shooting and be back at. I mean, all the complaining, all the things that we talked about here that are pain points and challenges, they're all the things I'm excited about too.
That's the next step. Kim, what are you excited about moving forward?
Definitely just doing more live shows. I've been lucky enough to, I've had work at a couple of venues that have been doing limited capacity live shows for a bit. So that's been really fun. But I mean, I think kind of like Nikki said, just I'm looking forward to complaining about way too much work and way too much stuff going on, honestly.
Ready to get back to it. Christian, what
Just
about
back to it, yeah.
I'm looking forward to having my team back. The rest of the marketing team has been furloughed since April, so that'll be so nice to be able to share the load with some other people, and so we all get to enjoy live music, because that's something that's been pretty stressful. It's like, how am I going to do this all by myself and go to the shows and sleep?
And relax. And Christine, what about you?
I mean, obviously, I'm very excited for touring to start up again, for myself to be able to go to shows because I miss that so dearly. But also to get artists into radio stations again, like setting up that promo is one of my favorite things, and being able to like actually connect real humans together is one of my favorite things that I get to do. And also for like, this sounds so nerdy, but for like radio conferences to be back in person again, so I can like hug my like colleagues and dear programmers from around the country. We haven't all been together in 2 years, which just feels insane to me. I'm very thankful I have a lot of like text chains, so I can still like keep in touch with all those folks, but just to see everyone in the flesh is going to be very nice. I'm sick of screens. As much as I'm loving this, I'm so sick of screens.
Yeah, I think we're all sharing that. Yeah, I'm super excited to get like the CPR Performance Studio back up in action and be out into each of these venues and see each of you in person, because that was a joy before for me specifically, but also for our community. I am Bruce Trujillo from Indie 102.3. I've been speaking with some really amazing women in the Colorado music industry. Thank you, Christian, Nikki, Kim, and Christine. And again, you can read more about each of these women at indie1023.org. Thank you guys so much for joining me.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Bruce.